What is going on, everyone? Hello, and welcome back here into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Appreciate you all joining us here on this Thursday, May 8th, 2025. Make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe on your way into the building. It's completely free, and it helps us grow significantly here on the show. Over a week removed from the draft, but hey, the Jets continue to give us headlines to talk about because that's what the New York Jets do for us. We got a very special show for you guys here on this Thursday evening. Joining us for the first time, the host of Hick at Night on the Infinity Sports Network, the executive producer of the Bill Ryder Show, someone's work I've been following for a super long time. So super happy to get him on the show. Ryan Hickey. Ryan, appreciate you sparing some time for us. And how you doing?
Of course, Connor. Thanks so much. Doing well. Thank you so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you hopping on with us. Know how busy you are. I know you were on the Zach Gelb show earlier today. So follow you, follow Zach, follow everyone on the Infinity Sports Network. So super happy we're able to make this happen. But let's dive right into it. And like I mentioned earlier, the New York Jets never fail to give us something to talk about. But I want to kind of go back to earlier in the offseason when the Jets made the decision to hire Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji. What was your initial opinion on the Jets' decision to go that route, and how has it evolved since with free agency and the draft in the books?
So my initial reaction, honestly, was kind of moot, just because here's what I mean by that. When you see the history of the Jets, and especially the last few years, I think the biggest reason for their continued failure is not a coach problem, not a quarterback problem, not a GM problem. It's an ownership problem. It all starts with Woody Johnson. He meddles too much, and there's a lot of reports that came out from The Athletic, amongst other outlets as well, that highlighted his involvement and how much he would kind of screw things up. And so that's why, like, when Robert Saleh was fired, when Joe Douglas was fired, it's like I had an opinion for a while. It doesn't matter who the Jets are going to hire, because unless they truly are able to convince Woody Johnson to take a step back and let them run the show, it won't matter. I thought, Connor, honestly, when they fired Saleh and were kind of going through it, I thought the only person that could save him was Nick Saban. Because that's the guy, at least, who
Wow.
has an idea of what to do. He knows how to win. I was skeptical at first of hiring a first-time head coach and a first-time GM because, again, no experience. Woody's going to be involved. Now, we obviously haven't played a game yet. Barely got on the practice field. I do like, at least, it seems to me from the outside, that Aaron Glenn has a good perspective of what he's doing. He has a plan in place. I like the fact that, I'm sure we'll get into this, they talked about Aaron Rodgers, basically said hello, goodbye. They didn't even really entertain it. They had their mind made up very quickly. It seems like for the first time in a long time, there is an actual plan for the Jets. And the few steps that have been taken so far, I like it. But again, I think for me, their success is going to come down ultimately to how involved, or lack thereof, Woody Johnson is. If it's the latter, if he truly lets the people he hired do their job, I do feel optimistic right now, Connor, that we could see the Jets be competent but also consistent for the first time in a long time.
Hot take Hickey, as Zach Gelb would say, coming in with the Nick Saban take. And I completely agree with everything you said there. I don't think, though, Aaron Glenn would take this job if he told Woody, if Woody Johnson didn't agree to let this regime come in, build their vision, because since the introductory press conference, these two, in Muji and Glenn, have made it clear they have a plan, they have a vision for this
Right.
team, and they're going to implement it. They made that clear during the introductory press conference, and the first main move, I think, that really highlighted that is moving on from Aaron Rodgers without really a conversation, a move that I know you've been very vocal on, and a move that I'm a big fan of. So I think Aaron Glenn, someone who is a leader of men, in my opinion, someone who is a hard-nosed football coach. I don't think he would have taken this job if it was a guarantee that, if it wasn't a guarantee that he would have had that he was going to have full autonomy over this organization. So hey, I like Aaron Glenn, I like Darren Muji, I like everything they've said thus far, but Hickey, it's not going to matter unless they start showing us wins throughout the season. I mean, we've put so much blind faith over multiple coaching regimes. I'm tired of it. It's a first-time head coach and GM tandem, what the Jets did with Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh. Now go out and show me you can win more than 7 games for the first time in over a decade. The Jets have not won 7 games in more than 7 games, than over a decade. As pathetic as that sounds. Hopefully Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji are the ones, though, to help change that script. They moved on from Aaron Rodgers, Hickey. They brought in Justin Fields, 26-year-old who, let's be real, hasn't established himself as a real consistent starter in this league, but has certainly shown the flashes of the upside, the potential that he brings to the table. And we've seen so many quarterbacks that, maybe get off to a rough start in their career as high picks and then, have really turned it around down the road, whether it's Baker Mayfield, whether it's Sam Darnold, whether it's Geno Smith. If the Jets kind of take what they've said about Justin Fields, about building a scheme around him, giving him all the weapons they have to succeed, Tanner Engstrand, if he's able to craft a system tailored to Justin Fields' strengths, do you think he's able to come in and be more than just a bridge quarterback for the Jets?
I think there's optimism. Yeah, I'm a Justin Fields guy. I guess you can say overall more of a hopeful believer than just kind of writing him off saying his career is dead. I do think he needs to be put in the right system. I don't think either Pittsburgh or Chicago got the most out of him. I'm going to use the word optimistic here. I'm optimistic right now that things could work out for Justin Fields where he could be. I think he could put the Jets I think he put the Jets in a wild card next year. I think in year number one. I do like the moves they made. I think he fits. You got an offensive line that is young, but I think they are building, especially I think their strength is going to be in the run game. I like Breece Hall. I know they talked about, 2 or 3 backs, but I still think Breece Hall, if he's healthy and in a better system than he was last year, can really kind of take off like he did in his rookie year before he got hurt. And I think he pairs well with Justin Fields. You're back with Garrett Wilson, a guy you had a lot of chemistry with at Ohio State. I am optimistic, and this is going to be on Fields and actually kind of prove it on the field to be consistent. I do believe this is his best opportunity he's had in the pros to truly get the most out of him. So we'll say TBD in terms of like basically being a franchise quarterback, right? If you ask, can he show that he's more than a bridge? I guess, right? You got to go from bridge to basically franchise guy is what I'm assuming. I don't really know what would be in the middle. I think he can be more than that. I think this year is going to be a big one to prove it. But I am hopeful and optimistic that at least going into the year, it does seem like the stars are aligned to where Fields should be in place to have one of the best years of his career, the best year of his career.
Yeah, what I kind of mean in that middle ground, I think, is maybe you're not the franchise quarterback. Maybe you're not the Josh Allen, the Patrick Mahomes, the Jalen Hurts, but maybe it's more than just a one-year option. And maybe Justin Fields is able to come in, deliver a 9-10 win season, and the Jets they're not forced to use their first-round pick next year on a quarterback, and maybe they wait till the second round and try to get someone like Carson Beck or another developmental piece without having to try to draft the franchise quarterback, scrap the Fields experiment after year one. I think the biggest thing for this regime year one is kind of going to be an evaluation stage. If Justin Fields is able to come in and give you 9-10 wins and bring you to the wild card round, have you crack the playoffs for the first time in 14 years. It would be the first time I've ever watched the Jets appear in a playoff game in my lifetime, which is, it is certainly crazy to think about. I think that's a huge step in the right direction. I think Aaron Glenn showed he took a low risk, high reward gamble on a quarterback in free agency and who came in and played above average for the standards set with him. I think if Tanner Engstrand is able to kind of build a scheme around Justin Fields' strengths where maybe you go from throwing the ball 40, 45 times a game with Aaron Rodgers last year, bring that down to 2025, 5-7 RPO quick passes, and get those design QB runs in there, because Justin Fields has the skill set. He has the traits to be a solid NFL quarterback. Young, athletic, great arm strength. I know people are going to point to what he did with Pittsburgh and Chicago with the accuracy concerns. This is what I'll say regarding the accuracy concerns. And I'm not comparing Justin Fields to this quarterback. The biggest complaint about Lamar Jackson before he won his first MVP was his poor accuracy. If Justin Fields is able to air the ball out downfield, he has his weapons. I think he can be more than just a bridge option for this team. Maybe he's a 3-4 year starter, and maybe he hits the unlikelihood of being a franchise quarterback. But I love the low risk, high reward gamble here on Justin Fields. For the Jets, let's transition over to the NFL draft, which occurred a little over 2 weeks ago. And Jets made a statement that they're going to solidify the trenches with their first round pick. We heard a lot of Tyler Warren hype. Armand Membu from Missouri is ultimately the route the Jets go. They have all 5 pieces of their offensive line in. 5 guys who I think are all very young and they're ascending. I don't think they've hit their ceiling yet. And I personally wanted a weapon. I wanted to add another pass catcher for Justin Fields, but I can't complain by any means of solidifying the trenches because NFL games are won and lost in the trenches. Hickey, did you like Aaron Glenn and Darren Mucci sending out a statement about trench play here?
I did. And that's part of the reason why I'm optimistic right now that things maybe actually are turning, in the right direction for the Jets for the first time in a long time, because they did get, attracted to the shiny object. And I think, you can definitely point to Woody Johnson. I think the Zach Wilson pick especially in terms of kind of forcing that down their throat when maybe the Jets either weren't ready for a quarterback, which clearly they weren't, or didn't want him specifically. And so, yeah, because I think, like you said, I thought for sure Tyler Warren. Now, I'm a Penn State fan, so I'm a little biased here, I will say, Connor. But like, I thought for sure Tyler Warren was going to go 7 to the Jets. I think it would have been a great fit. I think he's like a legitimate player. He can block, he can catch. I think he's a great target for Fields. But I think long term here, I like the message, like you said, I like the message it sends that really, because you look back and you talk about, the Jets and their lack of being able to get past 7 wins, and obviously right now having the longest playoff drought in the NFL. A large reason for that is, they haven't had a good offensive line in a long time. Nick Mangold, those days are long gone. And so you look back when, in the mid 2000s, when the Jets were still good and had Mark Sanchez, like they had a really good offensive line. And you're right. I'm with you 1,000,000%. Any good team in the NFL, you look at the 5 guys in front of them, for the most part, they have good offensive lines. So I like the fact that they're young. I like the fact that, they got 2 tackles now, Membu and Olu Fashanu, that fingers crossed, if they pan out, should be your bookend tackles for the next 7, 8 years, ideally. So I like the fact that they are right now building up front, kind of building their team from the inside out. I think it's how you do it. And you're also, in a way, Connor, catering to your quarterback. Like Justin Fields is going to be still, you want to use his legs. You want him to still, be a threat in the run game as well. And I think, like you said it before, and I agree. You're not going to ask Justin Fields to throw the ball 45 times. Again, that's just not a winning formula. You said accuracy concerns. That's very fair. I also am concerned about his ability to read a field a little bit. I think it's
manipulation.
For him. Yeah, like he struggles, I think, seeing guys open. He has to see them open before he throws it, knowing where to go with the ball. You get a run game, I think it helps the pass game. And how the best way to get a run game is the offensive line. I like the message that it sent, and that's part of the reason, again, kind of when everyone thought it was going to be Warren. And again, I think it would have been a good piece, but maybe on the flashier end, which the Jets have liked to do. I like you go hard, offensive line. We're building the strength here. That's our vision. I like it.
Look at what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes did the first year in Detroit, where Aaron Glenn was a firsthand witness to see what happened there. I mean, they went ahead and they took Penei Sewell with their first-round pick, the first pick of that regime. And Penei Sewell, I'd say right now, is a top 3, top 5 tackle in the NFL as it stands. If Detroit could go back, they wouldn't blink twice about drafting Penei Sewell. And I think you have your guy on the left side in Olu Fashanu and the guy on your right side in Armand Membu. And you get that solidified, the interior of the line with a former first-round pick who's still young and trying to reach his ceiling, stay healthy. Elijah Vera Tucker, who I think is a Pro Bowl caliber player when he's still healthy. John Simpson delivered a Pro Bowl-worthy season last year on the first year of his pretty cheap 2-year deal, and then used the second-round pick a few years ago on Joe Tippmann, who has played center for this team, but also has the versatility. If you maybe want to draft another center in a year or two, second or third round, you could slide him back out to guard. So that I really, really like the way this team's offensive line is kind of being built. You mentioned it from the trenches all the way back. So I really, really like the way the Jets have emphasized, games being won and lost in the trenches, solidifying the offensive line with the Armand Membu pick. Hickey, here's the list of all the Jets draft selections. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. Among all those picks, which was your favorite pick from a value standpoint?
From a value, you know what? I like Mason Taylor.
Ooh.
I think he's a really talented, athletic, strong tight end from LSU. Obviously, the 2 tight ends at the top of the draft got a lot of attention in Warren and Loveland. I think it's a good value pick. He obviously comes from a good bloodline in Jason Taylor as well. I thought, he played with some high-end quarterbacks at LSU, produced. He played as a true freshman, so he's kind of been through the fire, played well in an SEC conference that is one of the best in all college football. I know it's second-round picks or, again, quote-unquote value, like how valuable is it? But I do really like Mason Taylor here for the Jets in round number 2. I know you didn't ask for this, but I'm curious your thoughts here. Arian Smith. I've watched a lot of Georgia football the last few years, Connor. I've seen Arian Smith. He's a fast runner. He looks good in the 40. Guy can't catch cold. Are you concerned?
Yes. Hickey, I was not a fan of that pick when the Jets did make that selection. Not only because I didn't like Arian Smith and it was terrible value given most people had 6th, 7th round grades on him and he was expected to go there, but Jalen Royals, who was in my top 7 on my wide receiver board from Utah State, was sitting there at 110th overall, and you decide to reach multiple rounds on a guy who I think was fringe on being drafted and undrafted.
Agreed.
You mentioned the 10 drops, 10 drops last year, 5 missed tackles. The 10 drops are just simply inexcusable, 1,000%. But when you talk a guy is, flashy 40 time, I know he was a Georgia State track star, 5 missed tackles. Come on, you're praising him for his elusiveness, the juice that he brings to the table. You need to show me more than 5 missed tackles. He had a lot of drops for sure. I do have to say, though, Carson Beck was not great last season. Like, watching that Georgia film, there were so many patterns I saw Arian Smith run where he was wide open. Carson Beck underthrow, Carson Beck overthrow. So Beck didn't help him, but he also didn't help his own case with the 10 drops on beautifully placed balls from Carson Beck. So don't like the player at all, and it upsets me even more that the Jets passed on a guy like Jalen Royals to select him, or even a defensive tackle like Joshua Farmer from FSU, who was still there, someone I really, really like. So that pick was puzzling for me.
Next year, Connor, we got to get you in the draft room, man. We got to talk to Muji, get you in there, and prevent some of these fourth-round misses from happening again. Let's go.
Appreciate it, Hickey. And you look at the teams who have success year in and year out, they hit on their top 75 picks, foregone conclusion. Those guys come in, they're Pro Bowlers. But they also take guys in rounds 4 through 7 and turn them into high starters. And that's how GMs make their money. And that's how teams ultimately build dynasties and have success in the NFL. That was one of the biggest gripes against Joe Douglas. He never just had an even quality draft class. 2022, you obviously have the 4 studs in Sauce, Garrett, Brees, Jermaine. But then after that, like Jeremy Ruckert, who has been abysmal for this team throughout his first 3 years. Michael Clemens should not even be on the roster. And I think Izzy Abanikanda isn't even on this team anymore. So Douglas has had some drafts where he's a really, really strong first 2 Douglas had some drafts, where he had a strong top end and then a weak back end, and then vice versa. The biggest thing I think for Darren Muji, I know you were speaking about Woody Johnson's involvement earlier. I think a big thing for him and trying to keep his job long-term is going to be hitting on these day 3 picks, getting great value, turning them into starters while maximizing the top 75 picks.
I couldn't you look at some of the best teams, and the one I keep going back to is the Rams and how they're able to rebuild them themselves after, kind of going all in on the Super Bowl, winning it. But there was an older team, expensive team. They kind of stripped it down, missed the playoffs next year, and how they're able to bounce back. You look at their defense. The defense all 26 years of age or younger. They're all 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round pick, day 2, day 3 guys that Leslie and McVay have hit home runs on. So you have a young up-and-coming defense that is very cheap, and also guys that you didn't even use for the most part with premium picks. Like that's, again, I couldn't agree more. And that's, right. Round 1, there's so many busts. I can't sit here and call it easy. Yeah. That's unfair. But, you have one of the top 30, 40, 50 picks. You should, if you're good at your job, be able to hit. But you always kind of hear like that day 3 is really where kind of teams and GMs separate themselves because there's still talent there. You got to, kind of dig through it. But there's legitimate quality contributors all throughout that draft. And like you said, I think it's part of the reason why the Jets are where they are for the last decade is they've not hit on those kind of guys and other teams have.
You mentioned the Rams and their defense. How about Puka Nacua, a 5th round pick in 2023, comes in, and I think Hickey, this could be up for debate, but I think he's already established himself as a top 10 receiver in this league, give or take. I mean, his first 2 years, whatever you want to call it, top 12, top 10, top 13 receiver. A 5th round pick for Puka Nacua, someone who stepped up right away from when Cooper Kupp pretty much had that season-ending injury early in 2023, and then still made his impact during the 2024 year as well. Like getting 5th round picks, getting undrafted guys. Jordan Mailata with the Eagles, a converted rugby player, was an all-pro last year, just a few years into his career. That all stems from good coaching and hitting on your day 3 picks. 2 things the Jets have struggled mightily with over the past few years. Let's talk about this current roster, though, and how it stands overall. Allen Lazard still remains a massive question mark. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, we all know the talk. It's tomorrow. That's when he's going to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've been hearing that for about 2 months now. And George Pickens was just traded from the Pittsburgh Steelers for pretty much a bag of chips over to the Dallas Cowboys. Allen Lazard obviously has that connection with Aaron Rodgers. He's only been able to produce semi-competent numbers with Rodgers as his quarterback. the Jets restructured his deal, so if they cut him post June 1, they could save a solid amount of money, but they could also look to trade him and a day 3 pick potentially to even get a day 3 pick back, or they could keep him given how barren this wide receiver room as it currently stands. Hickey, what should the Jets do with Lazard?
I think trade him. Because at this point, look, you see the George Pickens trade, and I think for me, I know there's two reports there. I'm in the camp of look at the George Pickens trade. I think for me, the Steelers are kind of looking at it as we're going to load up on 2026 draft capital as much as we can and try to get our quarterback there. Now, that still may mean Aaron Rodgers goes in 2025 anyway. That's a whole different discussion, a whole different podcast. What the Steelers should do. I think they're in trouble. But you seemingly, right, because there's also the other camp of saying, oh, Aaron Rodgers didn't really like George Pickens, so they kind of traded him because Aaron didn't want to play with him. Even though you're losing talent, you're quote-unquote better off. And it's no coincidence, as soon as Pickens is gone, who's the name floated out there that the Steelers could be interested in? Alan Lazard. So it really, you know what, Connor? It seems like the Steelers right now are acting the same way the Jets did 2 years ago, where Aaron Rodgers had that quote-unquote wish list, and before he signed,
oh god,
who are you going to bring on the team? Right?
OBJ, the Mercedes Lewis, that whole list, and that pan out 2 years later.
David Bakhtiari, I think, maybe made the list, or maybe didn't at this point. Like, he had no knee at that point. And anyway, right? Like, this is playing out a little bit more, like a little bit quieter than the Jets one, because that was just kind of the worst kept secret in the league. It's just more a question of when than if. This feels like another when than if. When rather than if, I should say, for Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers. But if that's the case, and now the Steelers are quote unquote already acting in a way that Aaron Rodgers would like, well, if you're the Jets, and you are right, there's really no one behind Garrett Wilson and really no one behind Alan Lazard. But even if it is, you swap, I don't know, you go from you give him a 6th round pick and you get a 5th round pick back in return. So even something minimal, I think it's worth moving off of Lazard. And getting that draft capital, because again, it's not about the Jets in 2025. It's about the Jets in really 2027, 2028. So whether Alan Lazard is there in 2025 or not, I don't think it's going to impact the season in general. But if you can get a little bit higher of a pick, maybe increase your chances of getting a contributor for the next 5 years a little bit, even a few percentile chance, I would take it. So I think the only team you could probably trade him to, honestly, is the Steelers. Try to hope that they feel like they're backed into a corner of no chance, but to trade for him. If not, I'd probably cut him at this point and save the cap room and maybe give some younger guys an opportunity to kind of find a role here. But I mean, beyond 2025, Alan Lazard's not here anyway, but I would be surprised if he's on the roster week 1.
I think if you can get a 6th round pick for Alan Lazard, Hickey, you take that and run. A wide receiver trade target I'm looking at right now, who's we've heard has been on the trade block potentially, is Romeo Doubs with the Green Bay Packers. The Packers made it known they're trying to really beef up that wide receiver room. 1st round pick on Matthew Golden, 3rd round pick on Savion Williams. The Jets already have 4 first-round picks in 2026, which is crazy. You trade Lazard for a 6th, you make that 5. I mean, 2, 3 6th-round picks for Romeo Doubs, or maybe 2 6th-round picks and a 2027, 7th round, a conditional 6th or 7th round pick. Sign me up for that all day. So if you can get an extra pick for Alan Lazard that maybe helps you make a trade for another wide receiver, that's a win. Romeo Doubs is 25 years old. Romeo Doubs is 6'4", 6'3", can get you contested catches, going to get you 700, 800 receiving yards a year. And I think the Jets still need that number 2 receiving threat. I know you spoke a little earlier about how much you like Mason Taylor. I'm okay with Mason Taylor, not the biggest fan. Like him a lot more as a receiver than he is a blocker. I think he struggles a lot in line as a blocker. I don't want Mason Taylor being my number 2 pass catcher on this team. I still want to add that other guy, whether, again, it's trading for Romeo Doubs, whether it's Keenan Allen in post-draft free agency. Not the biggest Amari Cooper guy. One last question here. Do you think you could see the Jets coveting it could be wide receiver or any other player in post-draft free agency?
I don't know about coveting, just because, again, I think to your point, and you said it kind of to start this, and I agree, like, this is an evaluation year. So, like, if the price is right, if the price is right for Amari Cooper, could I see them saying, okay, like, for this $7 million, $10 million, we can get him? Like, I think, like, if the price is right, yes. And I think a second receiver definitely, I would say you definitely need a second receiver by week number 1. I like your Romeo Doubs selection or suggestion a lot. Again, hope Mushi's listening to this podcast, because you made a few really good suggestions so far, Connor, that I think should be implemented. If you're the Jets, well, like I think, and in part two, like Garrett Wilson is very talented. I know we can talk about the fit in the offense and the fit with Aaron Rodgers. I think him and Fields are gonna have a lot of success. But what hurts that is having no number two option at all, no one, that even anyone respects.
Yeah.
I would take, Keenan Allen's a little bit too banged up for my liking, but if that's
Mhm.
the guy you got to go for and just for 2025, at least kind of, patch it up a little bit and kind of kick the can down the road in terms of finding a legitimate number two receiver in 2026, maybe in the draft beyond whatever. Okay, I can listen to it. At least it's an idea that is not horrible, and it's cheap, it's flexible. So I wouldn't say covet, 'cause I don't think that, like, I guess for me at least, how I use covet is maybe like almost like it kind of goes hand in hand with a little bit like desperate, like, okay, we're gonna
Yeah.
go after this guy hard. I don't think there's anyone. That's a testament to where the Jets are, though. They're not in a position where you have to do something. Last year with Aaron Rodgers, I feel like you had to do something because, hey, we got this quarterback. We went all in for him. Like, well, we got to try to win with him now. And we have a very tight window. You had a tight window to begin with when you traded for him 2 years ago.
Completely agree.
Now we have an even tighter window. Part of the reason why I like the Fields signing is he does give you flexibility, but now you also bring a patience along where you can make a move and strike when the iron's hot if you like it. You have the flexibility to where you can remain patient. And I think that's, again, something where if the Jets are not kind of knee jerk, which I feel like Woody Johnson has been a lot, let the people they hire do their job. Don't put pressure on them where, hey, you got to win right now. We have a very short timeline, so let's just kind of go all in and just make these crazy moves because who cares about 3 years from now? We got to win right now. That to me, mindset's going to work out for the Jets in the long run really well. And the option to have a number two receiver, again, are they great? No. But I think the biggest thing is, and maybe Dobbs is the exception because if you trade for him, you kind of hope he can develop and maybe sign him to a second contract. So we'll just put him to the side. Everyone else that you mentioned and could be in the mix here are short-term rentals that give you some high-level production if it works out. But if it busts, it's kind of like no harm, no foul because they're relatively cheap and you're not going to sign them a long-term deal.
A low risk, high reward type move.
Right.
That's what Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji have shown is their philosophy, whether it's with the Field signing or any other signing this team has made this offseason. And like we said earlier, all you can hope is everything Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji are saying is great, but you have to win football games and you have to win. I like the signing with Fields, the upside, but like if the Jets, if Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn go 3-14, 4-13 this year, and follow that with a 4 or 5 win season in 2026. I think they're going to be on the hot seat entering year 3. I just don't know how much more patience this organization has left, how long this team could potentially extend the playoff drought. You got to hope, though, this playoff drought is broken this year with Justin Fields at the helm. Hickey, appreciate your time, and we appreciate you hopping on with us here on the show. The final question I ask to every single guest I have on: if you could take 4 dinner guests, anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would you take out to dinner?
Wow. Okay. First, Peyton Manning. I'm a Colts fan. He is by far my favorite athlete of my life. No
Daniel
doubt
Jones,
about
QB1.
Gotta throw that listen, in there. You think you've had it rough with the Jets. 2025, it's going to be rough for the Colts. I'm going to boycott Daniel Jones this year. I've made that decision in my head already. Peyton Manning is wow, this is a great question.
Appreciate
number 2, I will go. Oh, now I got to think of his actual real name. Oh, I'm blanking on it. Michael Scott is. Holy smokes. Are you an Office fan, Connor?
I know I'm not like a huge diehard fan like some, but yeah, I watch The Office. Like I know all the funny memes and stuff.
Got it. This is just so bad by me, not knowing.
Not at all. Not at all. This happens.
Steve Carell. Holy cow! You put me on the spot here. Now I completely fold under pressure. Okay, Steve Carell's number 2. Who is cool? I'm trying to think who would be cool to have dinner with. This is a great question. Any 4 people? I'm not even thinking about dead people right now. I should be probably thinking about dead people. George Washington. Let's see what running a country for the first time would be like. Yes. Different perspective. Why not? Last one. Okay. We have Peyton Manning. We have Steve Carell to bring some comedy. We got George Washington. I think I want to have fun at dinner. I don't want to be too serious.
Zach Gelb.
Zach Gelb, he'll be 5th. We won't tell Zach. Wow. We will go. We'll go Eddie Murphy. We'll go
There we
comedy. We'll go
go.
old school. We'll have a lot of laughs. How about that?
So Peyton Manning, Steve Carell, Eddie Murphy, and George Washington. Those are the 4 at the dinner table joining Ryan Hickey at your select restaurant.
Preferably, I think Italian would go over well. I think a nice
There we
find
go.
over some chicken parm, maybe some penne alla vodka, and have a few laughs.
Hickey, appreciate you as always. You got any final thoughts here before we wrap up the show?
Connor, thank you so much for having me number 1. You're a rising star, so really do appreciate
Thank
you
you.
thinking of me and asking me to come on the pod. Rising thought, I'll just say, I think there's real reason to be optimistic about the Jets for the first time in a long time. Again, Fields may not be the guy. He may not be the long-term guy that gets you over the hump, but it feels like the Jets were in the dumpster for a while, and then what they try to do is go from the dumpster to the penthouse. You can't just make that jump. But you got to get back to level ground first and climb the stairs. And it feels like at least they're finally back to level ground and they're starting to climb. They're on floor 1, they're floor 2. Let's just call it the penthouse, the 10th floor, to make it easy. It feels like they're finally okay, we're climbing, we're going in the right direction. You're not trying to jump. You're not trying to jump from the dumpster to the penthouse. So I think it may not result in 8 or 9 wins this year. I think they will be in the wild card mix kind of come Thanksgiving time, but I don't think they'll be a playoff team this year. AFC is tough. But at least you can feel good about, okay, with what we've seen so far, it does feel like there's an actual plan in place. It's not just panic, running around like a chick with its head cut off. And you can at least, I think, take solace in maybe we're heading in the right direction truly for the first time in a long time. That's what I'll leave you with. There should be real optimism for Jets fans going forward. The future does seem like there could be a light at the tunnel. That's not a train coming in, but actually true light to escape the hellhole you've been in.
Appreciate you tuning in. Smash the like button and hit subscribe. He's Ryan Hickey of the Infinity Sports Network. Shoot him a follow on all social media platforms. Make sure to tune in on Hick at Night on the Infinity Sports Network every single Sunday from 2 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Appreciate you all tuning in. Like I said, he's Ryan Hickey. I'm your host, Connor Long. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. And as always, JETS, Jets.